this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Friday. Kick off the Winter Olympics in style with the opening ceremony from Italy, featuring a special performance by Mariah Carey. Celebrate the greatest athletes from around the globe as they come together to go for gold.
Lindsey Vonn, sensational!
The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Ilya Malinin. Redefining the sport.
Friday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan. I love walking through graveyards. People find that strange, I know, but there's a certain solemnity about it. They're peaceful. They truly are. And then there's a certain beauty in it. You know, they're always placed, or they've grown, I think, with beautiful trees, landscaping. And then you have the artistry that goes into the design of headstones or memorials that are there. There are even little benches many times where you can kind of sit back and contemplate things. It's always peaceful to me. There are a couple near where I live, and one in particular I take my students to every year. It's as an adjunct to a class I teach called Clandestine Graves. There is a peace there. And for years and years and years, people have had family graveyards where they have taken their dead and buried them on their property so that they could watch care over them as the decades passed. However, one thing that you don't expect to find in a residential area is a grave, a truly clandestine grave, in the backyard of a home that had been there for almost a decade, until somebody finally revealed what was truly buried in the backyard. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. Dave, some people call me jaded, I know. I don't know if jaded is the right term. Cynical, maybe?
Okay, but hey, very quickly, Joe. Today, on this episode of Body Bags, we're talking about Eric Mercado, who has been living with Trista Spicer when he goes missing. He's 42 years old, and according to her, he just left the house one day and didn't come home. His family asks about him. They're talking to Trista, where is he? We'd like to see him. Haven't seen him in a while. And she goes, I don't know where he is. He just left. So over the years, she moves on with her life, and he moves another man into the house, same house. They get ready to move, her and the new boyfriend. And before they can do that, Trista says, I need a favor from you. It involves my ex-boyfriend. See, he actually didn't go missing. I've known where he is the whole time. Matter of fact, I need you to help me move him. That's the story today, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But all right, some people think you're jaded. How is that?
Let me kind of lay it out to you. When my wife and I first started dating, my wife Kim, you know Kim very well, she said that our dates were unusual because when we would go on a date in Atlanta, I could not help myself but say to her as we're driving through the streets of Atlanta, I had a homicide there. I had a suicide there. I worked a motor. We're actually driving over the spot where a pedestrian struck by a vehicle. And, it's a different kind of perception of the world. And I don't know. She had mercy on me, I think, and decided to hang around and say, this guy is so odd. Man. I gotta figure out how all of this ends.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, the kind of, I don't know if it's cynicism or maybe morbid, my level of morbid curiosity, or I don't drive by homes and neighborhoods and see good things when I drive by homes. I always think, I wonder what's happened in that home. Wow. And that's a horrible way to look at the world. But in our case today, I think that the people that are living in this town in California, going back and forth to their jobs every day, going shopping, hanging out with their kids, taking them to Little League games, or doing whatever it is. I don't think they had any idea of what was going on, just down the street for them, Dave.
I think it happens more than you and I realize, that because we don't know what goes on. We talk about this when somebody we read about that we think we have an idea of who they are does something really stupid and ends up in jail, and you're going, I thought I knew him or her better than that. Right. And we really don't. We know what people want us to see. Oftentimes they keep their private life private. I know it's different with social media, but even then, people only let you know what they want you to know, even on social media. So
can I just say something? I don't want to know about your surgeries. I don't want I don't want to see pictures of your surgeries on social media. I just, I'm sorry you had surgery, but sometimes I see some of the most and even by my standard, I see some of the most ghastly injuries that people take pictures of on social media, and they post them up, and I'm thinking, holy smokes.
Even today, I close my eyes when I know that an NFL highlight reel is getting ready to show Theismann's leg getting bent.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I know.
I can't even say it. I know. So when I drive around and see a house, I don't immediately go there, but I see how you would. And I'm just really shocked that Kim stayed. I'm surprised she didn't make an excuse to use the ladies' room and ditch you the first night, but that's a different story for a different day. In this case, Joe, I'm always mindful when someone goes missing and the person they are closest to doesn't seem to be involved in looking for them. They don't seem to be engaged in discussing it. They maybe show up at a candlelight vigil, but for the most part, they're concerned about other things. I'm thinking of everybody that we've ever covered that was guilty of killing a spouse. We have a couple that's been living together, and the boyfriend goes missing. They've been living together for 3 years, Joe, and the boyfriend leaves and doesn't come home. Tells you about a lot of things right there, because who would be screaming the loudest? Find my boyfriend, find the guy I'm living, spent 3 years of our life together in this house. He's gone. He never came home. Help me, please.
How is it that people deflect attention away from themselves in the midst of this? And isn't it interesting? People, I think, that otherwise would be loudmouths in life.
Right.
Isn't it striking that it's like they crawl down in a hole and they pull it in behind them, essentially, to kind of go beneath the radar. They don't make any comments about it. They may have said, I haven't seen them in a while. How many times have we heard that? And then it's kind of nonchalant. And immediately, as far as authorities go, you would think that would be the biggest red flag. I think that externally you have to have a big push on the outside, pressuring all of the actors in the case to come forward with information. Right. And if the police aren't as engaged with it initially, it's going to lose steam really quick, Dave.
Well, think about Lacey Peterson very quickly. When Lacey Peterson went missing, she's 8 months pregnant, and her husband ostensibly goes golfing. Oops, no, change story. I went fishing, and my wife came home. My wife's gone. It's right around Christmas, for crying out loud. And that was a problem for me, in that Scott Peterson is not the one screaming and yelling, look for my wife. It was her family that did that. He was kind of in the background. We all know why now, but at the time, it struck me as odd that he's not as engaged as he needs to be. He seems to be, in the first family press conference, he seemed to be pretty much, we know that she's probably, he was already in that mode because he just wanted to move on.
Yeah.
He knew where she was. He knew they weren't going to find her. In his mind, he's going, please, can't we just move on? I want to be 6 months from now. Remember, the thing that hits me, Joe, for real, selling her car.
Yeah.
You're talking about your 8 months pregnant wife. You've already named the baby to be, and she goes missing. Nobody is found, and you sell her car. She's not coming back. What do you know that nobody else knows?
Right. And it's a total eradication, or certainly a diminishment of that individual, where you can kind of, make them kind of vaporize into the ether.
Right.
And if you're already thinking this thing out in your mind that you're going to live a particular different way, how much more so? And, we think about this man and woman that have been living together now for 3 years, and he just kind of vanishes. doesn't show up, and he's particularly close with his family. They keep track of him, at least. They have some indication as to where he is.
And, Joe, we're not dealing with a really young man or a really old man, those two extremes.
Yeah.
We're dealing with a guy that's in his early 40s, and he goes, police have a tough time with that because, well, as adults, we're allowed to leave, and we're allowed to leave without telling anybody anything. There's no law against it. So when you call, and in this case, his family, they're the ones that created, and going back to who would be creating the missing posters. If something happened to you,
right,
Kim would be on the phone with everybody. Help!
Yeah.
I need posters. We need to, meet me at the town square. We're taking care of it. Before she called the police, she'd be organizing. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And in this case, his family had to create the missing persons posters. They circulated them on Facebook. That was dedicated to his disappearance. We're talking about Eric Israel Mercado. His nickname was Nino. About 5 years after he was missing, the San Bernardino Police Department issued a formal missing persons poster. So it took 5 years before they even said, okay, well, I guess he really is missing.
Yeah, and I think that goes to that element of age.
Yeah.
You're a grown man.
Right.
You're worldly, certainly by the time you're in your 40s, you're what is defined by worldly. And I don't mean that like in a religious or I'm talking about you're seasoned at that point in time. And so, they're not going to. And unless the police officers had worked multiple domestic calls, or maybe there was some kind of violence, where there was an indication that someone wanted him out of the picture.
Right.
They're not really going to go into a frenzy over trying to track this guy down.
Well, and again, you're talking about a grown man who can leave. And they do have other things, not that are more important. It's just other things more pressing, maybe. And so I understand it from every angle, unless, of course, you have one person that is your advocate. That one person in your life that is devastated that you're gone. Yes. That would be the person you're sharing your life with, the person you're living with, the person that is part of your daily pattern of life.
Oh, yeah.
And when that person is not concerned, well, there you go. Why? I mean, if she's not going to lead the charge, who is?
Precisely. And, you have and it goes without saying that we have a very intimate understanding of those that we are, I love this term, domiciled with.
Yeah.
And you see that person day in and day out. You're with them. You understand struggles that they're dealing with. Maybe there's addiction issues. Maybe there are real highlights and certainly lowlights in their life, and you experience all that with them. But I think that the reason that Trista Spicer didn't really get too excited about the disappearance and absence of Eric Israel Mercado is that she had kept him close, all right. She knew precisely where he was. And the answers that the police would find would be chilling.
Friday. Kick off the Winter Olympics in style with the opening ceremony from Italy, featuring a special performance by Mariah Carey. Celebrate the greatest athletes from around the globe as they come together to go for gold.
Lindsey Vonn, sensational!
The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Ilya Malinin.
Redefining this sport.
Friday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
I joke with my wife many times about, for me, and I know everybody views their spouse differently, but for me, I know how good I have it. And I always think sometimes, again, back to the cynic that's in me, there's got to be something there that's just beneath the surface. I keep thinking there's going to be some kind of sinister reveal when it comes to my wife, and that she's going to, tell me that she's, committed some horrible crime or been involved in something, because I keep thinking that, I'm going to, she's, I'm going to find out something horrible about her and we won't be together anymore. But after, decades of marriage now, nothing has been revealed. Dave, can you imagine being with someone who you say you care about, and the fellow we're going to speak about in just a second that kind of enters onto the stage in this, he actually said that he loved her and cared for this woman. She made a very big reveal to this guy, and it's kind of the linchpin in this entire case. And you talk about sinister. I mean, we're about to go to a very, very dark space here, Dave.
Well, all right.
Literally.
Eric Israel Nino Mercado, let's just call him Nino Mercado, leaves his home October 11th, 2014. No one sees him return. It's important. That's the last time anybody saw him, October 11th, 2014. We mentioned before that it didn't seem like anybody was looking for him, and it took his family to create the missing persons posters that they circulated online and out in public. It was 5 years later when the police issued a missing persons poster. Now, it boggles my mind when we refer to people like as an ex-girlfriend, because at the time of his disappearance, Trista Spicer was not his ex-girlfriend. They were living together. They were boyfriend-girlfriend. So it's kind of like whenever you have a teacher that is charged with an inappropriate relationship with a student. By the way, that is child rape. Anytime a teacher is charged, they say the former teacher, the ex-principal, whatever. It's like, no, he was the principal at the time.
At the time, yeah.
So anyway, so we got Trista Spicer, and she doesn't seem to be too concerned about where her ex-boyfriend now. I guess maybe that was her story. We broke up. He left. I don't know where he went. Now, what do you do with that, Joe? You've been around investigations all your life, or as an adult. What do you do if somebody says, I don't know where he is? He left. He didn't come home. I don't have him chipped. He's not a dog. I don't know how to find him. We had a big fight. We haven't been getting along, and he left. Maybe he's decided to start a new life somewhere where nobody knows his name. Not on, the opposite of Cheers. Where did he go? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. You look at an individual like that, that the subject has been missing for some time. And think about, go back to the family. Just God bless him, man.
Oh,
I mean, how frustrating would that be? Somebody that you're connected to, not just biologically, but you love this person.
yes.
You have all these things you'd like to say to them, and you're not getting anywhere with the police. Again, you're talking about a guy that's 40 plus years old.
Yeah.
And you're the one that's having to generate, if there's probably no reward money, not that, and I don't necessarily find that reward money is as enticing as it can be. Sometimes I think everybody thinks that if you put out a pile of cash, you're going to get answers.
Yeah.
But every now and then, it's like you'll see that little thread as an investigator that's kind of dangling right there. And by, I don't know, maybe it's tenacity as an investigator, or maybe it's just dumb, blind luck that somebody grows a conscience all of a sudden, and that thread is pulled. And all of a sudden, those things that were such a mystery for so long suddenly become revealed in the twinkling of an eye. And and again, you don't know how vested the police are at that moment in time, but I can tell you this: when the family would begin to hear this, and this news begins to kind of leach out of what has happened to Israel, you think about this and you think, wow, I bet that there was certainly sorrow, but there was probably a bit of relief.
I looked at the actual poster, Joe, that San Bernardino Police Department put out. I'm not knocking them, by the way, at all. I understand. But the circumstances for Nino leaving, it says Eric was last seen October 11th, 2014 in the 1200 block of Hart Street in the city of San Bernardino. Eric left his residence and did not return the next day. He is a local from the city of San Bernardino. Family and friends have not seen or heard from Eric since he was last seen. Now, the kick here is he's from San Bernardino. This is where his life has been. 42 years old. We expect him to be here. He's not. So here we are. The only connection we have to him now is the girlfriend, Trista Spicer. And as she is moving with her life, now we are talking at the time, 8 years in 2022. She has a new boyfriend, Waylon with a double A, Waylan. So Waylon Gentry is Trista's boyfriend. She decides it's time to move from Southern California. But by the way, they live about 80 miles east of Los Angeles, to give you an idea. Trista tells Waylon Gentry, time to move. I want to get out of here, but I got to tell you something first. Now, if you have been with somebody for a few years, you kind of know them, especially if in this case, according to Waylon Gentry, he's a convicted felon, by the way. I'm not sharing secrets about the man, but you and I have said somebody always talks. Whenever a crime happens, somebody talks.
They do. Yeah.
And Waylon Gentry finds out what Nino Mercado's family has been looking for years, answers. But it's not with one of these, I did this on this date, and here's all. It was a riddle. It was given to him as, well, before we move, I got to do something. Okay. Turn off the power, turn off the water, what? You know?
Exactly. Trim the lawn.
Yeah. So Trista Spicer says, before we move, I got to take care of something. She then proceeds to tell Waylon Gentry what she has to do.
When it comes down to it, and you have somebody that you are living with, and they ask you the big question here, I need you to help me get rid of my boyfriend's body. How would you respond?
Friday. Kick off the Winter Olympics in style with the opening ceremony from Italy, featuring a special performance by Mariah Carey. Celebrate the greatest athletes from around the globe as they come together to go for gold.
Lindsey Vonn, sensational!
The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Ilya Malinin.
Redefining this sport.
Friday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Tattoos are interesting things. Yeah, I guess people get them for any number of reasons, but for me, I've always felt as though that people that get them are trying to tell a story. They're trying to tell a story of their life, almost like a totem, if you will. And with this fellow involved in this case by the name of Waylon Gentry, he was described in court documents as being heavily tattooed up and down his arms. And the reason I think that probably he was is that you have a lot of time in prison. And this guy has been inside many, many times. He's an admitted felon. As a matter of fact, when he was asked about how many felonies he had committed by a defense attorney, he says, I don't keep track of them. So he's been inside for a while. I submit to you that with a felon in particular and their totem of tattoos that they have running up and down their arms, I think with that comes a certain degree of wisdom. And when you look at this case, I think that Waylon Gentry understood, Dave, that if he goes along with this idea of quote unquote, getting rid of a boyfriend, he knows what he is looking at. He's going in for, as they used to say, you're going in for all day, boy. And he does not want to revisit this. He knew what he was faced with. So he's at a very crucial point in time here, Dave, where he could have used this information to leverage her or do all this stuff. He didn't. You know what he turned to? He turned to his mama. And he discusses this with his mama and reveals all of this information. You know what mama said? Mama said, you need to do the right thing. And boy, when he did, the dam burst. I got to tell you something else about this guy. I think he wanted a place to stay. Did you know he was living in essentially one of her closets in the house, which I was fascinated by.
Waylon Gentry was?
Yeah, he was living like in a little closet within the house, and in one of the reports, which, there's this kind of separation between him and this woman, but yet they're domiciled together. They're living in here, and I'm thinking, wow, what's the connection? Well, the only connection that they really have are the drugs that they're involved with, and they like to get high together. And this is a safe spot for him to do it. And look, I got to tell you, I saw the Google Earth images of this house. It's a nice neighborhood. I mean, it's not. It doesn't look like a kill zone in this area. It looks like the lawns appear to be very well manicured and maintained. Who wouldn't want to live in that environment if you've been cooling your heels in state penitentiary over a period of time? But suddenly he's faced with this reality of what she's telling him. Dave, she actually related to him that, and this is probably, I can't imagine, even as jaded as he might be, how I talked about how I'm jaded. You imagine how the level of jadedness this guy has. He says that Spicer actually revealed to him that as Mercado was sleeping on her love seat, she decides to go and grab this frying pan and smash him in the face with it. And then, if that wasn't enough, she takes out a box cutter and cuts his throat. Now, I don't know how you would react, but I got to tell you, somebody's trying to convince me to do something like get rid of a body, which she also reveals to him has been entombed on her property. He's probably thinking, I want to get as much distance between her and myself as I possibly can. Think about, let's just kind of play this out. Let's just say that they had been getting high together for months, maybe a couple of years, and depending upon what they're using, they go into this kind of narcotic haze where either you shut down completely or you just run out of energy. And maybe he has a moment of lucidity where he's sitting there, oh my God, I could have wound up entombed on the same property with this guy she's asking me to help get rid of.
Well, Joe, he even said he didn't quite know what she meant when she said get rid of him. We're moving to Illinois. I need help. And it was, I need help to get rid of an ex-boyfriend. He said he didn't quite know what she meant. Get rid of? I mean, he's a convicted felon, so, it could mean any number of things. But he says, quote, and this is in court, Waylon Gentry said, I didn't know what she meant. She said he was buried under the stairs. I did not believe her. So, Joe, you said he called his mom first. Mom, what do I do? She said, do the right thing. So he does. Waylon Gentry protects himself by going to the police. Now, the police use his information, and it was interesting. The police don't reveal who their tipster is, but they use the information given to them by Gentry to make an appearance over at the house, just looking around a few things. They corroborate enough information from what he has told them, they can go get a search warrant. And it's with the search warrant that they're able to go and look and find exactly what they were looking for. And that is, after 8 years, they discover what really happened to Nino Mercado. And Joe, I have to ask you, what am I looking at when you mentioned she hit him in the head with a frying pan and then cut his throat? All right. So we know some physical stuff was done in that moment, but that was 2014. It was October of 2014. Now I'm going to assume that because we just know the last time he was seen was October 11th, 2014. For all I know, she kept him shackled in the bathroom for 8 years and just got tired of feeding him and offed him, Doesn't seem likely. It seems more likely that he was killed in October of 2014. And she got rid of the body. So what am I going to find? Well, what are we looking at in terms of he's been entombed for 8 years? What's his body going to look like, Joe? How am I going to know? How am I going to prove that she used a box cutter unless I have video? Because I know there's no soft tissue left, right?
No.
What did the police actually find?
Yeah, and even if there was what we would normally refer to as soft tissue, that tissue would take on, and particularly we have to think about where this is. San Bernardino is right on the edge of the desert. What do we know about the desert? The desert is dry. That environment out there is lacking in a certain level of humidity. And what happens with soft tissue in that kind of environment? Well, every now and then you will find kind of a natural mummification that takes place, and you will have residual tissue that's still overlying, skeletal remains. It looks dry, parchment-like, shriveled in appearance. And the closest I could really describe it to our friends would be, if you've ever seen the results of a food dehydrator, like where people are making like a jerky, for instance, that's as close as I can really describe it to you as to the appearance of the skin. We don't get that a lot here in the South because of the level of humidity that we have. Bodies break down a lot quicker in that sense. So there could very well be some soft tissue left. But here's the other thing that she decided to do, and I've had a lot of cases over the course of my career where you have these clandestine burials, and the perpetrator always makes a mistake by taking the body and cocooning the body. And here's something I've never heard of before. I found this fascinating, Dave, is that she had taken an air mattress. Like when you go to Mama and Papa's house and they don't have an extra bed and they're going to blow it up and put you on the floor, right?
Like sleeping in a fun house.
Yeah, like sleeping in a fun house. You're absolutely right. Well, this thing had been slit open. I find that term very interesting that they used, because what I'm thinking that, well, that's not the only thing that got slit. His throat was slit with a box cutter. How easy would it be to take that same box cutter, slit open an air mattress, which in a way becomes kind of a body bag at that point in time, and you place his body in it, you wrap his body in it, and then to go one step further, you really dig in this case, Dave. I think they described the location where his body was found as a tomb. Now, I know that's a term that a reporter would use because it's kind of salacious, isn't it? The body was entombed. And I guess, yeah, but the body was buried in an area beneath a staircase. Again, to say that it's beneath a staircase is I think, kind of a liberty that they're taking there. It was in the backyard adjacent to a building. There was an adjacent staircase.
Okay.
But Dave,
it wasn't in the house under the, in the crawl
because
space.
Immediately I'm thinking crawl space. Absolutely.
That's what I was.
But the dimensions of this thing are kind of impressive. And just let me kind of tell everybody, what we're looking at here. And the thing about it is, I do know this about that area out there. It ain't easy to dig in. It's hard. She apparently has dug, let's use it, a tomb for this guy on her property.
They called it a makeshift tomb, which immediately tells you, okay, she was attempting something here. It didn't work out the way she had planned, but it served its purpose. But makeshift tomb.
Yeah, the dimensions are kind of impressive. It's 8 feet wide, 6 feet in height, which is kind of odd. I've never understood the terminology with this, and 3 feet deep. Now, I don't know how we really can do the mathematics on that to understand the dimensions, but there's a lot of work that has gone into this. So you've got a guy who you've smashed in the face with a frying pan. The medical examiner stated that the force that was rendered and destruction that they saw, and this gives me an indication that they're looking at skeletal remains now, that this gentleman would have been dead within minutes of the strike, if not
What exactly
seconds.
did he see because we know by her own admission, she used a frying pan to mash his melon when she hit him.
Yeah.
You said with such force that it would have caused him to die fairly soon. What happened? I mean, what are we dealing with? A broken nose that, we always hear that story of if you hit somebody in the nose going up, it jabs their brain and kills them. They do that in movies all the time. Is that what we're talking about here?
No, it's a directed force where let's just everybody right now, just imagine that you're laying on a sofa. And in this case, he was lying on a love seat. He's asleep. So he's lying. Now, it's hard to determine, and I don't know if the medical examiner could necessarily make sense of this when you begin to think about directionality, what position his head was in. But we do know this. He's lying there and he is sleeping. So he's completely unaware of what's about to take place. His head is essentially supported, in the back. Maybe it's off to one side slightly, but when she comes down with the force of this frying pan, the medical examiner states that the nose and the eye socket were completely obliterated. So what happens in that dynamic? What happens when that occurs? Well, given the force behind this, and unfortunately, they haven't told us kind of the weight of this frying pan. Right. This has to have some mass to it. And that mass, that energy is going to be transferred to this blunt object. And this is truly a blunt object, Dave. So when his face and the bony structures, as we refer to them, they're very delicate in the face. I don't know that people really appreciate it. Those little bits of bone fragment, and you can't really say that they're shrapnel. However, the way the bony structures of the face are designed, they don't fracture in a way that, say, an arm fractures. First off, they're very thin, and they develop these. Many times they'll have these really rough edges, and sometimes they can develop these bony shards. So they're traveling into this guy's, certainly the frontal lobe of his brain, because this is being crushed. He's being crushed at this point in time. The back of the head is not going to have as much trauma. You might get what's referred to as a concussive trauma, where it kind of bounces back and forth. But those shards are being driven into his frontal lobe, and I'm sure that she witnessed him. This is why the ultimate, the coup de grace, if you will. She probably saw that he had agonal respirations. You imagine how horrible this is, because let me tell you the dynamics of it. He's still laying there. He still has a bit of life in him. And one of the first things that you're going to see production-wise with him is that there will be, as a result of the blood going into his nasal passages and into his mouth, that's going to be regurged up and blown out from his lungs. It's just a natural response. So he could be spitting up blood at this point in time. It's the most horrific thing you can imagine. And it's at that moment in time that maybe she had come armed with not only a frying pan, but a box cutter. Box cutter sends a chill up and down my spine, particularly when I think back to 9/11, when we think about the cockpit. Right. And she would have slit his throat at that point in time, which she apparently did. Now, would there be evidence of that? Sometimes even after these many years and the body is cocooned, remember, anything that was with him, we go back to Lacard's, anything that was with him at that moment in time, she wraps up in this slit air mattress and puts him into it. So she's containing all of that evidence, Dave. I mean, it's like when you're a forensic investigator, you see people that contain things like this, you're thinking, wow, jackpot, because this is holding on. It freezes that moment in time. even after all these years. The plastic might be diminished, but it's not going to be completely gone after all this time. The plastic of this mattress itself. So it's all contained in there. Now, with the soft tissue around the throat, you're thinking, is there any evidence? Is there any kind of dehydrated skin that is left behind, any remnant at all? And sometimes you can take a look at even these mummified presentations and you can appreciate hemorrhage there. This goes back to, this case is largely, I think, circumstantial, because when she's talking to her new love interest, that, by the way, again, we have to say she's asking him to help her get rid of her boyfriend. It might be where there is something left behind that she doesn't want to be found at that moment in time, because she knows what has occurred. So if you're going to disinter the body, what are you going to do with it at that point in time? Well, it never made it that far, did it, Dave?
No. And Joe, I want to go back very quickly.
Yeah.
The dimensions on the box that she had stored his body, 8 by 4 by 6. Okay. 6 feet tall, 4 feet wide. No, it's 4 feet deep. Anyway, the box was much larger than his body. And he is put in the mattress. Would the size of, like, if the box was having other things packed in, like clothing or other stuff, okay, that made it a tighter fit, would that help in preserving the body, or would that have no impact whatsoever? I guess I'm after the box was a lot bigger than his body, and I'm wondering, would that extra air or whatever in there help or hurt?
I think that it would probably help to a certain degree. The way that it could hurt is that for every item that you're placing into this entombment, if you will, with him, it brings along its own biological baggage. So you're introducing any kind of bacteria that might be growing. Let's say if you've got clothing, adjacent clothing that's there, unwashed clothing, dirty rags, or anything else that's placed in there, you're dragging all of that. Well, when you have his body in there that's already decomposing, you're introducing these other elements into the body. Could it impact it? It could aid in preservation, but it could also have a negative impact because you're introducing this other element into this environment. Either way, there was enough there for the medical examiner to take to be able to actually give a specific cause of death in this case, which is just in and of itself is amazing. And then you have the circumstantial information that's coming in from the boyfriend, the current
You've got
boyfriend.
A story being told by Trista. Trista Spicer tells the current boyfriend what she needed help with. He tells police, and everything he tells police is backed up by what they find on the premises.
What they're finding there. Yeah. And that's, I think, for an investigation, I think, isn't that the best of everything? As horrible as this is, but we're talking strictly as an investigator here.
Exactly.
Isn't that the best of it? Because it's scientific, because it's like somebody makes a statement and then can you verify it scientifically? And in this particular case, when you're talking about a fellow who has had his face smashed in with a frying pan and his throat subsequently cut, it's verifiable scientifically. What's going to become in this case still remains to be seen. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.